What do you think when you hear the word Zionism?
If you go to the founding fathers of Zionism, they were talking about Sharaka, about partnership.
They want to bring the Abrahamic Accords to reality, and they want to make it a peace between people.
Our show today touches me personally. One of the highlights of my term in office as Deputy Special Envoy to combat anti-Semitism for the Trump administration was that glorious September day when on the South Lawn of the White House, the course of history was changed with the signing of the Abraham Accords. Today, I want to introduce to you two individuals who are helping move the Abraham Accords to a people-to-people warm embrace. Joining me on Global Perspectives are the co-founders of Sharaka, the Gulf Israel Center for Social Entrepreneurship. And that's Dr. Majid Al Sarrah of the United Arab Emirates and Amit Deri of Israel. Join me.
Majid, Amit, it's so wonderful to have you here with us. Majid, I want to share some thoughts. So I'm Jewish from the Middle East, and in the Trump administration, I was part of the Abraham Accords Warm Peace deal. And I have to tell you, the work that you're doing just means so much to me personally. Majid, I want to ask you this question. Tell me a bit about your upbringing and your background that you were able to jump into this partnership with Israelis and Jews.
Well, to be honest, I'm not gonna exaggerate, but it wasn't systematic, honestly. Everybody was happy. I was extremely happy seeing Amit in Dubai for the first time, seeing Israelis. Amit was one of the few people who actually came to the UAE, to Dubai, in a well-organized delegation from Israel. It was like an excitement, like meeting them, like a reunion, as if we met some time before, okay, and then we sat, we exchanged ideas. We're like, oh my God, we're so similar, we have the same thoughts, we have the same approaches. We all want peace. We want to build better future for our children, generations to come. And with peace, with this culture, it will lead you to so many opportunities like business, education. And then we came up with this idea. We're like, we have to hold hands. We have to walk together. We have to build this future and make it an action rather than just talks. And we came up with the idea of Sharaka. The idea of the project was done in the UAE when we met in Dubai. And then Amit had this idea. He's like, I want to bring you guys to Israel to see the reality of Israel. Not the reality, it's not a reality, but not whatever you see on misleading media, unfortunately. So it was historic. We got to visit Israel for the first time ever. And it was so beautiful. So many people. I got so many calls. I got so many emails, so many text messages that I couldn't even reply. About people, so excited. They want to visit Israel. They want to see, they want to meet Israelis. They want to bring the Abrahamic Accords to reality. And they want to make it a peace between people, not just a cold peace.
It's interesting because my last official travel while I was in my term at the State Department was a visit to the Emirates, to Dubai and Abu Dhabi. And I was there the Friday night of Hanukkah, and there was not one, not two, but three synagogue services that Friday night.
Yeah.
And on Saturday night of the Hanukkah candle lighting, the Chabad of Dubai actually hosted a humongous Hanukkah candle lighting ceremony at the Burj Al Khalifa. So I tell people who've never been to the Burj that it's the Times Square of the Middle East. Imagine the scene. At the Times Square of the Middle East, you have this huge Jewish music concert, this huge Hanukkah candle lighting ceremony, and there's thousands of tourists walking around the Burj, and they're witnessing this. And what I tell people is that this is the Abraham Accords. This is the new Middle East. Amit, I want to know your impressions on Israel as an Israeli. What did it feel like for you that first time that you went to the Emirates?
Just a short comment about Hanukkah. At the same time that you were there, he was in the Kotel.
Oh, wow.
lighting the candles in the Kotel with the rabbi of the Kotel. For the first time, Arabs in the Kotel
Wow.
doing it with the full traditional dress. They were like rock stars. There was 3,000, 4,000 people cheering, and it was an amazing.
I saw the footage of that, actually. It did look amazing. And as much as I was so thrilled to be in the Emirates, I also did have this feeling of, oh, I wish I
it
were
was
there.
amazing.
Yes.
That was
yes,
amazing.
Yes. It was historic. It was historic.
Well, honestly, I think every step forward that we're all making is historic.
Definitely.
Certainly with the signing of the Abraham Accords and, the leadership of President Trump, the leadership of the Sheikh in the Emirates, the leadership of the King of Bahrain, all of these people, I think, together had this groundbreaking vision for the Middle East where they no longer were allowing the Palestinian issue to hold up the progress that was, potentially there. And incredibly enough, we're seeing it that the potential is now the reality. And so the peace that's burgeoning. And I definitely want to talk a little bit about some of the tensions we're feeling right now in Israel and Jerusalem. But before we get to that, I still want to know your impressions about.
As an Israeli, and I think Majid mentioned it, and he said cold peace. As an Israeli, we, the Israelis, we have peace with two Arab countries, big ones, Egypt and Jordan. But unfortunately, I wish it was different, but it's not peace. We all know it's not peace. It's like a ceasefire, and it's very important. We don't have war. We don't have wars, not with Jordan, not with Egypt. But it's not. I cannot feel comfortable walking the streets of Amman or Cairo with Jewish symbols, not to say Israeli symbols. I do feel comfortable walking the streets of Dubai, and I did it with an Israeli flag. I don't feel comfortable to walk with an Israeli flag in the streets of Manhattan, New York. Yeah. So as an Israeli, for me, when I experienced after the visit in Dubai, I said, "Oh man, we have to do something to hold it together," because it's one thing when leaders, and I appreciate them very much. You mentioned all the leaders that make it happen for us, but now it's up to us, people to make sure that this will hold. It's not just a photo op on the White House. It's something that will hold. We can hold all of us together for years.
That's amazing. And so I understand that's your mission. Your mission is building that people peace and interfaith exchange, interfaith travel between the countries. Is that?
And to bring that new model of peace here to America. America is an important place. We have a guy working for us in New York. We are going to bring Israelis and Emiratis to visit different communities, college campuses, universities, to talk with pride about this partnership that we have together, this Sharaka that we have together in front of everyone. Because, Israel is always on discussion on college campuses, on communities, and here in America. And I think this is an amazing opportunity for both nations.
What I learned when I was in the Emirates myself is that there had been a year of tolerance that was established by the leadership, and this predates the Abraham Accords. Now, in my mind, what the leadership in the Emirates did by working on the society internally was really laying the ground for the ability for the people, for the nation, for the citizens to then move on to making peace with the Jews in Israel. And so if you can tell us a little bit about the year of tolerance.
Okay, actually, it's a very good question. Thank you so much, because I would love to explain in the UAE, in each and every year, we would have an objective, a slogan, for us to move on. So 2019, it was the year of tolerance, and 2018 was the year of Zayed. Zayed is the founder, Sheikh Zayed, may he rest in peace. He was the founder of the United Arab Emirates. He gathered all the Emirates together with Sheikh Rashid bin Saeed, who was the ruler of Dubai back then, and established, the United Arab Emirates. When they chose the year of tolerance, that was nothing new, I would say. It was an extension of Zayed's vision, in the UAE, because in the UAE, we have been embracing tolerance and accepting each other, coexistence from the beginning. And if you Google now, tolerance and Sheikh Zayed, you would see videos going back to the late 70s, where he is welcoming each and every person in the UAE. I remember seeing him speaking, and they told him like, "Aren't you afraid? Because a lot of people come into your country, they're getting like mixed up with the society." They said, "Look, this is the land of God. Anybody who wants to come here is more than welcome." So we were embracing actually the pillars, I would say, of tolerance from the beginning. And luckily, with the blessed leadership that we have, I mean, they extended these pillars to make them more like into strategies, policies, and reflect them on the people themselves. We had the Pope coming and visiting, the United Arab Emirates, and it's not a Christian country. He actually conducted the Holy Mass in Abu Dhabi, and we have seen the crowds. Lots of Christians, they were there attending freely. No suppressing. Everybody was so happy to see the Pope for the first time in the UAE, and he actually made a prayer to the UAE leadership and people. So that was something really beautiful that we saw. I can guarantee you, we've seen on the individual level, people taking videos, having. And by the way, not just Abrahamic religions, they were having people from different religions, like in their houses, visiting them, learning about their cultures, about their teachings, trying to have this middle point that we can actually have a dialogue, discuss things with each other, accept each other, and live peacefully.
Well, first of all, mabruk on that.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I, having learned about all the groundwork that the Emirati leadership, the sheikhs and so on have had done, the internal work on society, I don't think, to me, there's no surprise why the United Arab Emirates, why Bahrain, why these were the first two countries in the region to make a warm peace with Israel. Amit, I want to ask your thoughts as an Israeli. So I think we spoke a little bit about what perhaps it took for people in the Arab world to be able to make peace with the Jews in Israel. On the flip side, for Israelis, I think that a lot of times, and you tell me if I'm wrong, but I think for Israelis, a lot of time, the association with the Muslim world, the association with the Arab world is often Palestinians who are sometimes radicalized, who sometimes hate Jews, who are sometimes committing terror attacks and violence against Israelis. Israel is a country where every person has mandatory army service, where they're often in situations where they are on the receiving end of this hatred towards them. What do you think it takes for Israelis to perceive Arabs in a different light?
I think our leaders, the Israeli government, the government here in America realized that, okay, we really tried so hard to get to that peace that everyone wants in the region with the Palestinians. And I think they understand something in the last 10 years, that maybe to get to that peace, we have to go from out within. Let's start with those courageous leaders, like in the UAE and Bahrain, and I believe Saudi Arabia is close to that very much.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
Bizrat Hashem.
That will bring us the peace that we all want with the Palestinians. And let's make it better with the Jordanians, and especially with the Egyptians. That's also something that is possible with the current administration there with Sisi. Then the peace will come, because we tried 100 years. We have a conflict. We tried. Every president in the United States and in Israel tried to, the Europeans invest billions of dollars. Most of it is going to tunnels in Gaza Strip. So maybe let's try another concept. And I think the Israelis are ready for that. And they embrace in, Majid can tell you, he was, they came with the traditional dress, so you cannot miss it. He is from the Gulf. And they were walking the streets of Rothschild Boulevard in Tel Aviv. And people hugged them and they jumped on them, and kids and all, and they're kissing them, and they want to be, they were like rock stars. Yeah. So I think Majid can testify here and tell how warm is the love that that they got from the Israelis in the streets, simple people. We are waiting for this peace. We are, all of the Israeli songs is about peace. We want that peace in the Middle East. And I think it's possible. And all of the Israelis are embracing that peace with the UAE. I don't know even one that rejecting or saying, "Oh, this is not important." So the answer, yes, bring more nations.
So on that note, I want to talk about something perhaps a little intellectual, and I didn't give you gentlemen any heads up that I was going to ask about this. In my travels in the Arab world, what I found is that the word Zionism is a very loaded word. And I thought it would be interesting for us to have a little bit of a discussion about this. And Majid, I want to ask you this question first. What do you think when you hear the word Zionism?
Well, in the beginning, I'm not gonna lie. In the whole Arab world, if you hear the word, I mean, Zionist, it had a very bad meaning, and sometimes, they would be, oh no, there's a huge difference between Jews and Zionists, and people were like, I keep hearing this a lot, and they're like, okay, we don't have a problem with Jews, but we have a problem with Zionists, no problem with Judaism, but the Zionism is the issue. And then it makes you like, you don't actually, because you study history and everything, but you don't go into like the Zionism and everything. But then you have this one question. I mean, as a Muslim, do you believe in, we believe he's a prophet, Prophet Solomon, King Solomon, Suleiman in Arabic. Do you believe in King David, Dawood, alayhi salam. So if you believe in them, and then you question yourself, where were they living actually? They were not living in Europe or in some other place. They were living actually in this land, the Holy Lands, And then you go back to history again and you see the story of Musa, alayhi salam. Then when he left Egypt, he went back again through Sinai, and he went back to, the Holy Land, I would call it. And then the name Israel itself, now of course, after doing some research, they said like Zionism is the belief that Jews has to return to their lands and in this Holy Land. And then when you actually dig in more in history and you realize, okay, that they were living here. There were like kingdoms, the Yehuda kingdoms, the kingdom of Israel, and the name Israel itself, it's Jacob, and he was named Israel. So I wonder sometimes, and I ask people, why do you, with all due respect, like, why do you condemn Israel? Do you know what Israel means? It means Jacob. Do you believe in Jacob? So if you believe in Jacob, I mean, you wouldn't say anything bad about this name. So I think there should be awareness about Zionism. Normalizing it is really important.
Well, and that's the reason why I wanted to have this conversation. So I want to ask Amit.
I think he was too polite. He's polite in general, very gentle and polite. But Zionism is equivalent to Nazism and to fascism in the Arab world. We all know that. It's a harsh term. You say Zionism, even people that likes us, they move in the chair. Because it's been indoctrinated for years and years by the media that Zionism is a term that expresses hate of Arabs, coming to steal lands and coming to do bad things to whomever is not a Jew. That's Zionism. That's the label of Zionism in the Arab world. And it's true. One of our missions, the Israeli side, is to say, no, let's talk about Zionism. Let's talk about Judaism. Let's talk about Israel.
So let's talk about it right now, Amit. I mean, what does Zionism mean to you as an Israeli Jew? What does it mean to you?
If you go to the founding fathers of Zionism, you will see that back 50, 60, 70, 100 years ago, they were talking about Sharaka, about partnership coming to, it's not me, it's them. It's that Zionism coming from Europe or from other places in the world back to our land. Yes, because we believe this is our land, but we are not coming to expel other people. We are not coming to fight other people. If you look on history, there were always attempts from the Jewish pilgrims and that came to Israel to work with the Arabs, to work with the locals, and to cooperate. Still, till today, Israel have 20% Arabs. They are citizens, equal citizens in the Jewish state. So Zionism doesn't mean that we want only Jews living in the state of Israel. No.
So, Majid, what do you think it's going to take to spread the message to the Arab world about the Jewish return to their ancient homeland?
I think it's really important to have a dialogue. It's really important, and we need to accept, like, whenever you have a dialogue, you might agree and you might disagree, which is really healthy, I would call it. And having these kind of like sessions and dialogues and exchanging ideas, learning about each other is really going to be helpful, because I didn't have any knowledge. And by having these dialogues, I believe it's going to be really a great step towards understanding each other.
And we want to be the facilitators of this
Yes.
dialogue.
Yes.
That's the whole idea of Sharaka. There is no
Yes.
platform. Like until now, you cannot, you can go and Google, but people don't do that, especially
Yeah.
on history.
Yeah.
But when you have a platform that bring people together, so they start to talk, they start to exchange ideas, they talk about the past, about the future,
Yes.
about challenges. That's exactly the idea of what we are doing.
Well, I'm so thrilled that I get to be a part of this conversation with you. And I want to ask you guys, I know we're running out of time, so I want to ask some quick questions, even though these are not quick question types. But so Majid, I'm going to keep starting with you. When you hear the Israel apartheid, what do you think?
First of all, I didn't even know that there were Arabs in Israel. I thought it's a Jewish, it is a Jewish state, but I thought it's only Jews allowed to be there. I met a guy, an Arabic guy, and he was at the IDF. He was a soldier. And he told me, yes, I'm proud of it. I was protecting my country. I was, in service of my country. And he was treated equally. He was being, treated as an Israeli. And he was actually with us. I saw him in Dubai, I saw him in Israel. But I believe we are all here to help each other. We live all together in the Middle East, and I think Israel can learn a lot from the UAE and vice versa. We learn from each other. We exchange experiences, and I think this will lead us to shape a better environment for people, and to kill these ideas about being discriminative.
Amit, what about you? Israel apartheid.
A big lie. In the last 6-7 years, the main thing I'm doing is to refute these lies, mostly in America, in Europe, and now in the Arab world. I have the privilege to come and say and present the truth and bring people to see. It's like Majid said, it's the best way. Come and see, come and experience, and we are very welcoming to have these groups in Israel anytime. You just need 2 days in Israel to refute that apartheid nonsense claim. It's very easily, just come and see.
So here's my last question for you both. And I have to say, this was such a great conversation. I hope we'll do it again soon.
Thank you.
Amit, what do you think it will take to see an everlasting, deeper, broader, bigger peace in the Middle East?
Strong leadership in the Middle East, in the US, and in Israel. That's really what I believe. Strong leadership. I admire the leadership in the UAE. I really believe these people are strong enough to be the leaders of all these big countries. And to say, yes, we want peace with Israel, we want normalization, we want to have a better future for the Middle East. And only the people of the Middle East can do that. I really believe, as an Israeli, that we are ready. The Israelis dream all the time for that peace. And I believe that if Saudi Arabia will join this train of peace, as Majid said, it will change dramatically the discourse, and I hope it will be soon. And I hope the US administration will be the leader. It should be the leader of the free world and push the others in the Middle East to normalization.
Majid, I want to ask you the same question. What do you think it's going to take for us to see a deeper, broader, and everlasting peace in the Middle East?
I have to say, because he said what I wanted to say about leadership. And honestly speaking, people would keep asking me, what's the key, what's the secret of this peace? And I would tell them it's the visionary leadership. Because these leaders, they have faith they have belief, they see the future. It's all about future foresight and knowing better. And it's not just spontaneous, it's really well systematic, building policies, and strategies to on the long run. You build this future for the next generations, and it's all about leadership. Leadership is the key. Having these leaders would take us to lovely and beautiful future.
Well, this has been a fascinating conversation. I think we discussed the leadership on the highest levels, but also leadership from people like you.
Yes.
And I'm just so thrilled again that we had you with us, Dr. Majid Al Sarrah,
Thank you.
Amit Deri, founders of Sharaka. Thank you for joining us on JNS. Thank you.
Thank
you
you.
for having
Thank
us.
you so much. Thank you.
Majid and Amit are just two individuals, but I believe they represent an entire generation of people in the Middle East and North Africa who are searching for peace and bridge building between their peoples and the Jewish people of Israel. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Global Perspectives, and I hope you'll join me the next time.